My parents cut me off completely, then discovered my $50 million company on the news and started calling nonstop saying they're proud. Your support keeps this story alive. Please subscribe, and while you're here, tell us where you're watching from. It always warms my heart. I was 22 when my father threw my suitcase down the front steps of our Detroit home. You want to waste your life on computers? Do it somewhere else, Naomi. His voice echoed through the neighborhood that hot July morning. My mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her silence more devastating than his words. I just told them I was dropping out of Wayne State to pursue my startup idea, a cybersecurity platform I'd been developing in my dorm room for 18 months. Daddy, just let me explain the business model. Business model? He laughed bitterly. You sound like those white kids on TV. We didn't sacrifice everything so you could throw away a real education for some fantasy. My younger brother Noah watched from his bedroom window, his face pressed against the glass. He was 15 then, still their golden child, the one who followed rules. My mother finally spoke. If you walk away from that scholarship, don't come back. We're done paying for your mistakes. Her words were surgical, precise. 20 years of raising me and she could still cut deepest. I grabbed my suitcase, hands shaking, and called my best friend Aaliyah. Can I crash with you? My voice cracked. It's really over. What they didn't see was the laptop in my backpack containing code that would eventually protect 300 million users worldwide. What I didn't know was that this moment would define everything that came after. Every late night, every rejected pitch, every time I wanted to quit but remembered that doorway, my mother's crossed arms, my father's contempt. I was homeless by choice but abandoned by force. Aaliyah's apartment in Corktown was 400 square feet of barely controlled chaos. She worked double shifts at a hospital while finishing nursing school, and I'd transformed her coffee table into my office. You've got 3 months, she said that first week, handing me ramen. Then you need to show me something real or you're getting a real job. Fair enough. She was risking her lease for me. My startup, Cypher Shield, was designed to detect and neutralize cybersecurity threats before they breached systems. The code was revolutionary. I'd figured out a pattern recognition algorithm that anticipated attacks by analyzing behavioral anomalies. But revolutionary doesn't pay rent. I spent August applying to accelerators, pitching to anyone who'd listen, living on $4 a day. My phone buzzed constantly those first weeks. Not my parents, never my parents, but Noah. Mom cries every night, he texted. Dad says you're dead to him, but I know he checks your Facebook. I blocked him after the 15th message. I couldn't afford the emotional bleeding. Each text was a knife wound I didn't have time to bandage. Then September hit like a freight train. I got rejected from Y Combinator Techstars and 6 other accelerators. Too ambitious, one wrote. Not enough traction. Another said, interesting idea, but we're looking for more experienced founders. Translation. They didn't believe a black girl dropout could build enterprise security software. My bank account showed $87. Aaliyah's patience was wearing thin. I could see it in how she'd glance at the couch where I slept, at my clothes taking over her bathroom. Naomi, I love you, but she didn't finish. He didn't have to. October brought Jamal Washington into my life at a tech meetup I'd crashed for the free pizza. He was 45, a retired software architect from Microsoft who'd made his fortune in the first dot-com boom. You the girl with the security startup? He'd been watching my pitch to a disinterested audience. My stomach was growling so loud I worried he'd heard it over my presentation. That's me, I said, trying to sound confident despite my thrift store blazer and scuffed sneakers. He studied me like I was a line of code. Your algorithm, walk me through it again. Slowly. We spent 3 hours at a coffee shop I couldn't afford to order from while he dissected my work. His questions were brutal, technical, exposing every weakness. "You're on to something," he finally said. "It's rough, but the core concept is solid. What do you need?" I wanted to cry. Instead, I said, $20,000 for 6 months of development and a server setup. I'll give you 15% equity. He laughed. "Keep your equity. Consider it a loan. But I'm watching and I'm introducing you to people." Jamal became my mentor, my champion, my proof that someone believed in me. He connected me with Elena Rodriguez, a venture capitalist who specialized in cybersecurity. "She's tough," he warned. "Make it count." I had one shot and I was starving, exhausted, and desperate enough to be dangerous. The night before meeting Elena, I called my parents' number. It rang 6 times before my mother answered. "Don't," was all she said, then hung up. I threw my phone across Aaliyah's apartment, watching it crack against the wall. Good. I needed to be angry for tomorrow. Elena's office overlooked downtown Detroit, glass and steel gleaming in November rain. She was 40, Brazilian-American with a reputation for finding diamonds in rough markets. 10 minutes, she said, not looking up from her tablet. Impress me. I plugged in my laptop with shaking hands, pulled up my demo and showed her something no one else had seen. A live simulation of CipherShield stopping a ransomware attack in real time. "How?" she asked, leaning forward. "How are you predicting the attack vector?" I explained my algorithm, the pattern recognition, the machine learning model I'd trained on 13 months of data. She interrupted constantly, drilling into technical details, financial projections, market analysis. 90 minutes later, I was still standing, still answering. "You dropped out of college for this?" She finally sat back. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "It cost me everything." She smiled. Small, almost invisible. "Good. People who have nothing to lose build empires. I'm in for 250,000 seed round. 20% equity and I'm joining your board." I walked out of that building into the rain and screamed. A businessman crossing the street stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Maybe this is what resurrection felt like. Violent, loud, impossible. I called Aaliyah from a bus stop. "We did it," I sobbed. "We actually did it." That night, I drafted an email to my parents. "I got my first investment today. $250,000. Thought you'd want to know I'm not completely worthless." I stared at it for an hour before deleting every word. They'd made their choice. Now I'd make mine. Let them wonder. December brought Noah to Aaliyah's door at 2 a.m., his face swollen from crying. "They kicked me out," he said. "I told them they were wrong about you and Dad." He couldn't finish. My baby brother, 17 now, standing in freezing rain because he'd defended me. I pulled him inside, fury building in my chest like a wildfire. "What happened?" Aaliyah asked, getting him towels. Noah explained through tears. He'd shown our parents a TechCrunch article about promising Detroit startups that mentioned CipherShield. "Dad ripped up the magazine," Noah said. "He said you'd probably slept your way to that article." I called him a bitter old man and he put my stuff on the lawn. I held my brother while he cried, making a decision that would change everything. "You're staying with me. We're getting our own place." Within 2 weeks, I'd leased a 2-bedroom apartment in Midtown using my new funding. Noah enrolled at Castech and I hired my first 2 employees. Darius, a brilliant developer from Ghana, and Allison, a marketing genius who'd been laid off from Ford. By February, CipherShield had 15 employees working from a warehouse space in Eastern Market. Elena introduced me to Noah Delgado, a Silicon Valley veteran who'd sold his last company for $90 million. "I want in," he said after seeing our growth metrics. $5 million and I'll help you scale nationally." We closed the deal in March. My parents never called. Not once. But Detroit's tech community started noticing. I gave interviews about being a Black female founder in cybersecurity, about dropping out, about believing in yourself when everyone else bets against you. I never mentioned my parents specifically, but anyone who knew our story could read between the lines. June brought our first major client. Chrysler Corporation signed a 3-year contract worth $2.5 million. I was 23, running a company with 32 employees, and I still hadn't heard from my mother or father. Noah thrived in our apartment, his grades perfect, his college applications stellar. "You saved me," he said one night over Chinese takeout in our office. "We saved each other," I corrected. Truth was, having him there kept me human. The startup world wanted to consume me, 18-hour days, constant pitching, endless pressure. Noah forced me to eat dinner, to sleep occasionally, to remember why I'd started this. "Don't become them," he'd say when I got too intense. He meant our parents, cold, unforgiving, incapable of admitting mistakes. Aaliyah got promoted to charge nurse at Harper Hospital. We celebrated at her new apartment in New Center, the three of us, my chosen family, the people who'd believed when biology didn't. "Remember when you slept on my couch?" Aaliyah laughed. "Look at you now, so Naomi." We toasted with cheap champagne that tasted like victory. August brought our series a funding round. Elena led it, bringing in 2 more venture capital firms. $7 million at a $50 million valuation. I was a multimillionaire on paper, still 23, still haunted by that doorway in Detroit where my parents had ended us. "You should reach out," Jamal suggested during a board meeting. "Success is hollow without family." "They made their choice," I said, voice harder than I intended. "I'm making mine." But late at night I'd scroll through old photos on my phone. Birthday parties, graduations, family dinners before everything shattered. My mother's smile before it became a weapon. My father's laugh before it turned to contempt. I grieved them like they'd died, because in a way they had. September brought the storm. Someone leaked internal communications from our competitor, SecureNet Solutions, showing they'd been systematically stealing our code. Worse, their CEO had been bribing former employees to sabotage our releases. The evidence was devastating. Emails, financial records, everything. I had a choice. Go public and destroy them, or handle it quietly through lawyers. I called an emergency meeting with Elena, Noah, Delgado, and Jamal. "We go nuclear," I said. "We expose everything, file criminal charges, and show the industry what happens when you steal from us." Elena hesitated. "That's risky, Naomi. Could make you look vindictive." I smiled coldly. "Or it could make me look like someone you don't cross." We held a press conference in October. I stood before cameras and reporters, dressed in a navy suit that cost more than my father's monthly salary, and laid out the evidence. "Corporate espionage isn't innovation," I said. "It's theft, and we're prosecuting fully." The industry erupted. SecureNet's stock cratered 40% in one day. Their CEO resigned within a week. The press loved it. Young Black female founder takes down billion-dollar competitor. Forbes wrote a profile. TechCrunch called me the Queen of Digital Justice. My face was everywhere, and I knew my parents had to be seeing it. Part of me hoped they were proud. The other part hoped they were choking on their judgment. Noah forwarded me a text from our mother. "Tell your sister we saw the news. She looks thin. Is she eating?" I laughed until I cried. Almost 2 years of silence, and that was her opening line? Noah replied for me, "She's fine. Better than fine, actually." November brought the announcement everyone in tech had been waiting for, Forbes 30 under 30. I made the list, number 7 in enterprise technology. The magazine's photographer came to our office, now occupying 2 floors of a renovated building in downtown Detroit. "Tell me your story," he said, setting up lights. I told him the sanitized version, dropped out, took a risk, built something meaningful. The article came out in December and it was different. The writer had done research, found people who knew my history. Naomi Bryant overcame family estrangement and homelessness to build Cipher Shield, the piece read. When asked about her parents, she simply says, "Some people can't see your worth until the world validates it. That's their loss, not mine." I'd said that during the interview, bourbon brave and tired of pretending it didn't hurt. The article went viral. My phone exploded with messages. Reporters, podcast hosts, conference organizers. Everyone wanted the against all odds narrative. But the call I didn't get was the one I'd stopped expecting. My parents remained silent and I told myself I was fine with that. I was lying. Christmas approached and Noah asked the question I'd been dreading. "Are we going to visit them?" He meant our parents. I looked at my baby brother, now 18 and thriving, and said, "They know where we are." We spent Christmas Day at Aaliyah's with her family, passing collard greens and cornbread, laughing until our sides hurt. This was family, chosen, earned, real. But that night, alone in my apartment, I broke. I called their number and hung up before anyone answered. 3 times I did this, pathetic and desperate, before finally sending a text. "Merry Christmas. Noah's doing great. I hope you're well." No response. Never a response. January brought Tasha Freeman back into my life. We'd been close in college, best friends before I dropped out. She'd stayed, finished her degree, gotten a corporate job at Google. "I'm so proud of you," she said over coffee in January, her smile wide and genuine. "I always knew you'd make it." We started meeting regularly, catching up on lost time. By February, Tasha had joined Cipher Shield as our head of product development. She came highly recommended and I trusted her completely. That was my first mistake. My second was giving her access to our proprietary code and upcoming product launches. "We're family," she said when I handed her security clearance. I'd never betray that. March brought whispers. Allison, my marketing director, pulled me aside. "Something's off with Tasha. She's been meeting with SecureNet's new CEO." I didn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. We'd shared secrets, dreams, late-night study sessions. But Allison was insistent. "Check her communications. Please, Naomi. Trust me." I authorized a security audit, hating myself for it. What we found destroyed me. Tasha had been selling our upcoming release schedule and product features to SecureNet for $50,000 a month. 6 months of betrayal right under my nose. The emails were casual, friendly even. "Thanks for the info," SecureNet CEO had written. "Keep it coming." Tasha had replied with a smiley face emoji. I confronted her in my office, door locked, security waiting outside. "Why?" My voice shook with rage. She didn't even look ashamed. "You changed, Naomi. You became one of them, rich, arrogant, forgetting where you came from." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said quietly, "Get out. Legal will contact you." The Tasha situation went nuclear. We pressed charges for corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets, and breach of contract. The tech press covered every detail. Cipher Shield founder betrayed by college friend read one headline. Another, "When Success Breeds Jealousy, the Tasha Freeman Case." I did interviews where I had to pretend my heart wasn't shattered, that losing a friend hurt less than losing code. Darius found additional evidence. Tasha had been planning to leave and start a competing company using our stolen intellectual property. She'd recruited 3 other employees, promised them equity, painted me as a tyrant who'd forgotten her roots. The betrayal had layers, each one cutting deeper. I trusted her, I told Elena during an emergency board meeting. I brought her in. "That's not on you," Elena said firmly. "Predators exploit trust." That's what makes them dangerous. But it felt like my fault. I'd been so desperate for connection, for someone who remembered who I was before money and success, that I'd missed every red flag. Noah had seen it. She asks weird questions, he'd mentioned once. I'd dismissed it. April brought Tasha's arrest. The FBI got involved because the theft crossed state lines. Watching her perp walk on the news felt surreal. My former friend in handcuffs facing 20 years federal time. Part of me felt vindicated. The larger part felt hollow. How many more people would I lose to this company? This success I'd built from nothing? My mother called that night. First time in almost 3 years. We saw what that girl did to you, she said, voice careful. Are you okay? I hung up without responding. The audacity showing up now when I was wounded as if they had the right to comfort me. May brought the TechCrunch Disrupt conference in San Francisco. I was keynoting, telling Cypher Shield's story to 3,000 attendees. My speech was scheduled for noon on the main stage. I'd practiced it dozens of times, perfecting every pause, every inflection. What I couldn't prepare for was seeing my parents in the third row, dressed in their Sunday best, watching me like proud spectators. My hands shook as I walked on stage. They had no right to be there in that audience after everything. But there they sat. My father in his best suit, my mother wearing pearls I'd never seen before. Noah was backstage with me. They showed up yesterday, he whispered. I didn't tell you because... He didn't finish. He knew I would have canceled. I gave my speech in a fugue state, barely remembering the words. Resilience isn't about never falling, I heard myself say. It's about who catches you and who walks away. Build your empire with people who believed in you before the world did. The applause was thunderous. My parents stood, clapping harder than anyone, tears streaming down my mother's face. Backstage they tried to approach. Naomi, honey, you were magnificent, my mother said, reaching for me. I stepped back. Don't. My father looked older, smaller somehow. We were wrong, he said. We were scared and wrong, and we've regretted it every single day. I laughed bitterly. You've had 1,000 days to say that. You chose today. Security escorted them out at my request. Noah watched silently, torn between the sister who'd raised him and the parents who'd abandoned us both. They're still our parents, he said quietly. I shook my head. They're strangers who share our DNA. There's a difference. That night I blocked their numbers, their emails, every avenue of contact. I was done bleeding for people who only loved me when the world was watching. June brought the call that changed everything. Apple wanted to acquire Cypher Shield for $200 million. Elena delivered the news during our Monday morning board meeting. They're serious, she said. Full acquisition, you'd stay on as VP of Security for 3 years and everyone gets paid out. $200 million. My share would be $90 million after taxes. I was 25 years old. I'd built this company from nothing, sleeping on Aaliyah's couch, surviving on ramen and rage. And now Tim Cook's team wanted to buy it. What do you think? I asked Noah Delgado. He smiled. I think you've already decided. He was right. I wanted to sell to prove something to ghosts who didn't deserve the satisfaction. To show my parents exactly what they'd missed. The negotiations took 3 weeks. Apple's lawyers, our lawyers, endless conference calls about earnouts and retention packages. By July, we'd agreed on terms, $250 million with performance bonuses. The deal would close in September, right after my 26th birthday. I'd go from dropout to multimillionaire in 4 years. The American dream, Silicon Valley style. But success felt emptier than I'd imagined. Aaliyah threw me a celebration dinner, inviting everyone who'd helped. Jamal, Darius, Allison, the early employees who'd believed. Speech, they chanted. I stood looking at these people who'd become my family. None of this happens without you, I said. You believed in a dropout with a laptop and a dream. I'll never forget that. My phone buzzed constantly. Reporters, other founders, investors wanting meetings. Lost in the noise was a text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your success. We always knew you'd make it. Love, Mom. I deleted it without responding. They'd known nothing. Believed nothing. They didn't get to claim this victory. September 15th, the deal closed. Cipher Shield became part of Apple's security infrastructure, and I became one of the youngest Black female executives in Silicon Valley. The wire transfer hit my account at 9 a.m., $93 million after taxes and payouts. I stared at my phone screen, watching those numbers that didn't feel real, didn't feel earned, even though I'd nearly died building this. My parents showed up at the closing party uninvited. Aaliyah saw them first, trying to talk their way past security at our Detroit headquarters. Should I send them away? She asked. I looked at them through the window. Older, smaller, desperate in a way that should have satisfied me but only made me tired. Let them in, I said. It's time. They approached nervously, clutching a wrapped gift like an offering. Nomi, my mother started, but I held up my hand. You don't get to do this, I said quietly. You don't get to show up now after 4 years of silence and pretend you were always proud. You threw me away when I needed you most. My father's face crumpled. We were wrong. God, Naomi, we were so wrong. We were scared and we thought we were protecting you from failure, but I laughed, sharp and bitter. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourselves from the embarrassment of a dropout daughter. There's a difference. We lost everything, my mother sobbed. 4 years with our daughter, watching Noah grow up, being a family. We lost everything that mattered because we were proud and stupid and scared. She was right, but it didn't change the past. The doorway where they'd thrown my suitcase. The 2 a.m. phone calls to their number that went unanswered. The Christmases alone. I forgive you, I finally said, and watched hope bloom on their faces. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You taught me that family is earned, not given. You're not my family anymore. I turned to Noah, Aaliyah, Jamal, everyone who'd caught me when I fell. These people are my family. They believed in me when I was nothing. My parents left crying, still clutching their unopened gift. Noah asked later if I'd been too harsh. Maybe, I admitted. But I spent 4 years being harsh on myself because of them. I'm done carrying their guilt. I donated $10 million to programs supporting first-generation college students. Dropouts, misfits, kids whose families couldn't see their worth. The tech press wrote about the acquisition, about the young woman who'd overcome everything. What they didn't write about was the empty space where parents should have been, or how success tastes different when you've had to build your own foundation. I'd won spectacularly and completely. But victory was quieter than I'd imagined and lonelier, and exactly as satisfying as it needed to be. I built an empire. They watched from the outside. And somehow that was enough.